done. Overnight, President Poroshenko decided not to renew the ceasefire. Yesterday, Jen Psaki said that the Americans would support the decision either way. And today we've seen a renewed assault by Ukrainian forces in the east against the pro-Russian separatists. Are you still supporting the Ukrainian decision not to resume?
Yes, we are. And look, it takes two to keep a ceasefire, right? So President Poroshenko put in place a 7-day ceasefire. He abided by it. He extended it for 3 days. But the fact remained that the separatists, many of them weren't adhering to it, and he has a right to defend his country. So he, at the same time, though, and the secretary did speak with him yesterday, I believe, he did say he was still committed to a peace plan. So the ultimate goal here is to get back to a ceasefire, get back to a peace plan, but it takes two parties to put that in place and to keep it in place.
Are you worried the situation might degrade even further than it has done in the past?
I mean, certainly that's a concern, but we are encouraged that President Poroshenko has put forward a path here, a plan to get back to a ceasefire, to get back on track, and now we need to see the separatists doing the same thing.
And is it still America's contention that the Ukrainians are showing admirable restraint in their actions in the east?
It is, yes.
You're not at all worried about what you're seeing, the fighting, or?
Well, look, this is the Ukrainian forces have a responsibility to defend their territory and their people, and what they're seeing is aggression by Russian-backed separatists that they have, an obligation to respond to. We'll look at every situation individually, obviously, but...
What's your response to President Putin's comments today? He said Russia is involved in a historic effort to defend itself. He compared Ukraine to Iraq, Syria, and Libya.
I don't know what to do with that second part, comparing it to Iraq, Syria, and Libya, so I'm probably not even going to touch it. But, I mean, historic in the sense that it's illegal under international law. I mean, sure, under one definition of historic.
So
I'll give him that.
Last week it seemed like there was time being given to Russia before sanctions were going to be imposed.
Well, we wanted to see how the ceasefire played out.
And so now that it's over and President Putin saying things like this, where are we on sanctions?
We still have the ability to do them, put them in place very quickly. We are talking to the Europeans about them every day. I don't have anything to announce, but we are looking very closely at what we might do next.
President Poroshenko said that the pro-Russian militias are also infiltrated or manned, or they have great many members that are the Russian Secret Service. Do you agree with that? Or Russian intelligence?
Well, I don't have the details on that in front of me, but suffice to say, I think we've made pretty clear that we think the Russian government is involved very closely in backing these separatists. So no details on that, though.
Secretary's phone call with President Poroshenko just about the end of the ceasefire?
It was about the situation in Ukraine, the ceasefire. Let's see, expressed U.S. support for the people of Ukraine and for the Ukrainian government's effort to maintain public order. Welcomed his continued commitment to pursue his peace plan, including the offer of amnesty, decentralization of power to the regions, political dialogue, and the economic revitalization of the eastern part of the country. Also talked to him a little bit about how we and our European partners are willing to do more to press Russia to end support to the separatists, and said we are continually preparing more costs for Russia if it does not take further steps.
Was there any discussion there about the humanitarian situation in the East? I know President Putin had talked to President Poroshenko about this, trying to open up a corridor for some kind of humanitarian relief. You have people who are trying to leave the country. There are a lot of refugees there. It's kind of an awful situation, and it's also something that the president of Ukraine should also be concerned about. Has anything been done with regard to that?
Well, certainly the president of Ukraine is concerned about it, but this humanitarian situation there is a direct result of Russian-backed incursions there. There was not a humanitarian situation there before the separatists started killing people. So let's be clear about the cause of this. In terms of the numbers, I don't know if Jen got this yesterday in detail, but we talked a little bit about the UNHCR's numbers. In many cases, we don't question the UNHCR's credibility. We obviously think they're an important organization. In many cases, such as in Syria, data comes from multiple independent sources. We think that's important to back up the data. In this situation, UNHCR's estimate of the number of people moving across the Ukrainian border comes directly from Russian government sources who, suffice to say, have not always been entirely accurate here. And just a couple more points on this because I know there have been some questions. UNHCR's statement did not say that 110,000 refugees fled Ukraine into Russia. What it said is that number of people had crossed the border at some point. That could be to go visit their grandmother and come back. Only 9,600 people have actually applied for asylum in Russia. And I just want to be very clear when we talk about numbers because there have been some confusion here. And we continue to support the work of UNHCR and attempt to get alternative sources of information for them.
When was the last time the Secretary spoke with Foreign Minister Lavrov?